Hi, I'm Marius Gosch, co-project lead of Broken Sword 2.5, and I'm here with Scene World Podcast.
Hey, it's the Scene World Podcast. That's Jurg over there. I'm AJ, and I'm sick because I was around people on Thanksgiving. And
Best wishes.
you know, um, you know, uh, during COVID, first we were locked down, and then were wearing masks. And then even after we didn't have to wear masks anymore, I still had to wear masks for what I was doing for work. So I haven't been sick since 2019.
Wow.
And even if we did like a holiday thing back then, usually I was at work for it. I wasn't home. So I avoided it, but this year I didn't. I couldn't avoid it any further, and yep, got myself nice and ill.
Wow. Sorry to hear.
Yes. So in a minute, we're talking with Eugene Sandulenko from ScummVM.
He's a project leader, actually.
There we
Yeah.
go. In a minute, we'll learn more about that. In the meantime, there might be some news.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely have some.
Okay.
So number one news is December the 6th. By that time you read this or hear this, we are actually after December 6th, but Remute, aka Dennis Karimani, our PR person, will do a new music album for the Nintendo DS.
Nice.
Yeah.
I wonder what the limitations of a DS are.
I have no idea. Never owned one.
Because I think the DS is a lot more advanced than like a Game Boy or anything like that, right?
That's for sure. Yes. Yes, and also there is now an Everything C64 Discord server.
Oh, really?
Yes. So I will put a link to that in the podcast description as well.
Cool.
And ScummVM actually put on their socials a shout out for testing the upcoming ScummVM 2.9.0, which also includes Broken Sword 2.5 fixes.
Okay. Nice.
Yes.
Yeah, they actually fixed a lot of stuff you contacted them about some issues with that, right?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. True.
Nice.
Other news, interesting. Composer legend Adam Gilmour returns to making music on retro games for the Atari ST.
Oh, yeah?
Now, Adam Gilmour, let's think about it. He did the music for the horrible European release of Afterburner on the Commodore 64, but at least the music was good.
I don't know the music from the European version of Afterburner. I know the one in the U.S., which
was by Jeruntel. Yeah.
What was it?
Yes, it was Jeruntel. Yeah.
I know that there were some songs that got kind of like reused, like Top Gun. The music from Top Gun was Comic Bakery.
Yeah. It was Jeruntel because they fixed the playing routine to make his European music player play on NTSC speed correctly, because he is Dutch. So he sent in the music to Activision, not Activision. I think No, I totally forgot.
It
Who
always
did?
confused me because I'd try to find these songs from these games that I played, and when I did find the music, it was not what I remembered. And then I hear the music somewhere else, and it's like, this is the Comic Bakery music, and it's like, I never played that game. It seems like a really, for what Comic Bakery was, it feels like a really bombastic piece of music for
I
a game
know.
like that.
I know. Anyway, I was wrong. Sega was copyright, obviously, because they released the arcade of Afterburner, but publisher was Mindscape. And musician, Runtel.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah. And now, Misc Relation, Afterburner European version, copyright Sega, developer, Dalali Software, musician, Adam Gilmore.
So now he's returned to doing retro music. How did he do music for any other games? Anything else aside from that?
Yeah, he did a lot.
Bad? Was it all terrible?
He did. I mean, at least the games were terrible. Yeah, he did. Very very famous C64 release was Elvira, the arcade game.
Elvira, yeah.
Elvira, okay.
The arcade game.
Elvira? Yeah.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I remember like an RPG.
No, it was actually an adventure, but they also made an arcade. They made two adventures, Elvira 1 and 2, and the third one called the arcade game, which is a jump and run.
Okay.
So they made 3 games on the C64. Other famous titles he made music for was International Ninja Rapids, International Tennis, Ninja Commando, and Time Scanner, which is the pinball machine of Activision.
Ninja Commando. Some of these things just seem like two words stuck together that don't necessarily belong. Ninja Commando. What was the rabbit? The bunny one? The rabbit?
International Ninja Rapids.
Oh, no more ninjas. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then he also did. He also did Winter Olympiad 88 and Winter Super Sports 92.
But did he do Ninja Winter Super Sports?
Yeah, I mean, I guess he did the music where he was assigned to. You know.
Yeah.
I guess as a musician, you don't really have the choice. You are contracted basically. And he did the music for Blue Baron, which is a very famous shoot 'em up from Zeppelin games, 92.
And its sequel, Blue Ninja Baron.
Yeah. Well.
Lots of ninjas.
Yeah. Yeah, and he did the music for Trolls. Just to name.
Trolls?
Trolls, yeah.
I don't know. Was that a C64 game?
Yes, from 93 by Flare Software.
Oh, it's actually the Trolls. Like the hair.
Yeah.
With the hair.
Yeah.
I did not know
Was
that.
also released on MS-DOS, Amiga, and Amiga CD32.
93. That's pretty late in the game.
I know. If you consider that from the original commercial market, the last game on the Commodore 64 was Lemmings.
Right.
94.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, if you go by Moby Games, then you can see that he stopped making music 2005.
Okay.
So after 19 years, he's doing game music again, and for the Atari ST, which is quite nice.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. So he had a long break and he returned from the break. Yeah. And he announced that on his Blue Sky social media profile. So let's see what the games are. So the games are Tony, Montezuma's Gold, and Time Wizard Deluxe.
Okay.
Both, Time Wizard Deluxe is an Atari 8-bit game, and the other one is an Atari ST game.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so somehow they managed to hire him. Yeah. And that's actually his only 2 posts on his Blue Sky social media profile. So he returned to the retro gaming music scene with a bang.
Yeah. We may have talked about this before. Hang on 1 second. I need to blow my nose again. Cut this part out.
No problem.
Oh, God. Oh, that sucked. So, we may have talked about this before, but, we've made the assertion that Lemmings is the last commercial game that was released from the 64. What are the
from the main market, the main original market, yeah.
Because, I mean, there were commercial games, especially, again, we're talking about Lodestar, that continued to release stuff long after that. And those were commercial. They made money off of it.
Yeah,
free.
But we are talking here about the core market. I mean, back then you didn't have the term AAA titles, but at least still Lemmings is considered the last game. Lodestar games weren't like big games that were made by big companies and stuff.
I mean, some of them were pretty up there, really good games. But I mean, yeah, but it was still, you bought them. They weren't free. They were commercial.
Right. But still, common knowledge is Lemmings was the last commercial game for the main market. And the game before was actually Mayhem in Monsterland. And there was a race between the two, which development team would release their game first. And well, Lemmings was the one that lost it. And it's also the last game Jeroen Tel did music for on the Commodore 64.
Right.
So that was actually his exit project for that platform.
Right.
And we interviewed people before, and they said Psygnosis only released it because the game was already ready and the costs weren't high for publishing. So it was like, okay, now we have another platform on the list. So in 94, there was actually no real market anymore for Lemmings.
Right. Okay, interesting.
And I remember many years after that, you could still buy copies unopened, new old stock.
Right.
From some online trader stores.
Yeah, I used to get a lot of my stuff. There was this little store in near where I used to live that sold new old stock C64 stuff. And I used to always get I got my gold box TSR games from there.
Nice.
They were brandly new. So I picked them all up. They had like one set of each one. I also got a couple of monitors from there and an actual C60. No, I got my 128D from there. The DCR, the big metal thing.
Nice.
They were going to call me if an Amiga ever came in, but they went out of business before they got an Amiga.
Oh, too bad.
Yeah, I had to wait until like 2017 to get my Amiga.
Wow. Yeah, well, staying with the topic Commodore, Bill Winters released a new video, Commodore Stories and History with Commodore Software Products Manager Gail Wellington.
Who did this?
Bill Winters.
Oh yeah.
Amiga Bill.
Amiga Bill. Yeah. Good guy. We love him. Awesome. Hey, you watch the? That reminded me, because he did a photo shoot thing, or no, he was the cinematographer, the camera person. I don't know what I'm talking about. My brain is in a fog. With Mike Tyson a few years back. Did you see the Tyson fight?
I didn't watch the.
Oh.
But I do have Netflix. I can see the recording, I guess. I heard Mike Tyson didn't move at all.
So, people are saying that it was thrown, like he lost on purpose, that there was a contract. Some people are saying that Jake Paul is a really good fighter. All I remember watching was, what I remember from that is that Tyson barely landed a punch. He stood there. He moved pretty well for, being for as old as he is. He's pushing 60. But Jake Paul landed more punches, but they didn't do anything. Like at the end of it, Jake Paul was dripping with sweat, and Mike was completely dry, not a drop of sweat on him, just kind of hanging out like nothing, like he couldn't do anything to Mike Tyson. I feel like he was holding back, because he really didn't throw much, and he spent a lot of time biting his gloves. So, but the fights before that were good. The women's fight right before him, holy God, that was good. Girl's eyebrow was hanging off her face.
I'm not sure I want to see that.
It was brutal.
I'm not sure I want to see that.
But yeah, it was a weird fight, and a lot of people are complaining. But it's like, it was on Netflix. You watched it for free. It's not like you had to pay like a pay-per-view fee like you used to.
Don't you have to need a subscription for that?
Yes. But aside from that, but I mean, everyone's got a freaking Netflix subscription at this point. So it's not
okay. In America, perhaps.
Right, you don't have to pay.
Not here in
else.
Germany.
Yeah, you're not paying anything else for it. You just you go on it. It's there. It's one of the core programming. Whereas boxing and wrestling and whatever else, they would always be like pay-per-view. You'd have to pay to watch the event. And in that case, I might be annoyed if I dropped money on it, but it was free. It was on Netflix, so I got it anyway. I could watch it and be disappointed. Though we did get to see Mike Tyson's butt, which was not something that was on my bingo card for the night.
Oh,
it was a weird. Wow. It was a weird part. His son was interviewing him, and it was Tyson was just like, I'm gonna kill the guy or whatever. Then he's like, love you, kid, and he hugs his son, and he walks away, and he's like wearing he's wearing like an apron with no pants. He just walks away. So it's just like in this weird sequence of events of like, I'm gonna kill him, I love you, but.
Okay, weird.
Yeah, it was an interesting event.
I'm not going to watch it. I don't want to see women having aprons hanging off her face or something.
That was probably one of the best fights I've seen.
If you are into such things, okay. I'm not.
I'm not. I watched the last boxing match I think I watched was, again, a Tyson fight, and it was, I'm going to say 96. I was actually in Canada. I was in Toronto, and we went to a sports bar to watch it, and it was packed, like you couldn't get in. So my friends and I stood on the sidewalk and watched through the window of the bar. So it was that was the last time I watched a fight, just because it was a big one.
So what do you think? Do you think he held back?
I think he did, yeah. I think he did, because that's the thing. It's like, if he had gotten in one uppercut, it would have been done. Even to this day, like he's older and he's not the mean dude he used to be. But if he really wanted to, I think he just he's making what like $20 million from this. I think he's just like I'll stand there, dance around a little bit, and walk out with a giant check. So. And It's better than going up against a real boxer, because a real boxer might be able to do something, but this kid, he's just, just everything bounced off him.
Yeah, I heard he won the fight with technical.
Yeah, on
KO.
Points. Yeah, on points. Not a KO. He landed more punches. Tyson only landed a handful of punches. He was like I said, he wasn't throwing.
Okay, well, other news.
We still got news, okay.
The Space Quest historian released a video, Why Timers in Sierra games are so broken. Which is quite interesting, because he goes into depth why Sierra's adventure games have so much broken timer events.
Right.
Yeah. And also another video by the Space Quest historian that he released, and I found very interesting. There is an emulator for Sierra games on the Game Boy Advanced, and that has been fixed after 20 years.
Okay.
Fixed in the way that now certain games actually work without crashing, and the music routine has been fixed. Before, the music emulation was just broken.
Right.
Just wrong voices and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, and also the Bolo Museum announced the departure of Yves Bolologny.
Bolognini?
Bolognini, yeah, exactly. So, the Bolo Museum announced the departure of Yves Bolognini from the Mémoire Informatique Foundation. I don't know. I don't know French, because he wants to more concentrate on his artistic hobby, like juggling, circus, and stuff.
Really?
Yes.
I did not know he had that hobby.
He does. Yeah.
So he left the Bolo Museum.
Exactly. Yes.
To pursue juggling.
Exactly.
And the circus.
Yes. Exactly. You got it. Yes.
Okay. Well, whatever floats your boat, man. Yeah, I'm not gonna yuck your yum. I wonder how much. What does juggling pay?
I mean, here we go. New artistic adventure. Since 2020, Yves has chosen to devote all his free time to his other passion, the performing arts. Juggling, unicycles, acting, and clowning. Yves is fully committed to his path, going so far as to become a coach at the Alchemy Circus School in Belcher.
Okay.
So he will actually be teaching the art, all those different art forms that you use in the circus. So he will be like an educator in that profession?
Yes. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that makes more sense then. I mean, in as much as clowns terrify me, if that's your your passion and you can do something. If he's going to go and be an educator, okay, I can see you making a living off of that. That makes more sense. If I was just like, I want to quit my job and juggle, I don't think many people are going to pay me to do that, especially since I can't juggle.
Mm-hmm. This reorientation motivates his decision to leave his responsibilities with the foundation while remaining close to the heart and spirit of the museum.
Okay.
The entire Bolo Museum extends its warmest thanks to him for the years of dedication, for his vision, for the passion he has been able to transmit.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess he's not leaving it complete. He's still keeping in touch and all that stuff. It's not like one of those guys that says, I'm leaving the scene completely. I have something else going on, so I'm never going to look at a C64 again in my life. Which just doesn't make any sense. Like, how hard is it to put an emulator on your computer and check out a demo or something, or play some game, like... People are like, I'm moving on. I'm never looking at this again. I'm selling all my hardware, and I'm gonna, raise porcupines or something.
I don't know. I mean, it could be PR talk. I don't know.
Well,
hard to tell, actually.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that the default would be, again, if I was like, I don't have time to do this stuff anymore. Like, which is sort of true. I've done that plenty of times where it's like, I don't have time to be a full-time coder or graphics guy or whatever. But I don't get rid of my stuff. I might pack it up for a bit. Because, I don't have a use for it. But I always had like an emulator. I never lost touch with what was happening. I was still looking at things and keeping in touch with people.
I mean, we have some examples. Silvio Savarino, I've never heard of him ever since he said he quits.
Right.
Just one example.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
we've
had a few people do that, where they're just like, I'm quitting, I'm done with this. It's just like, it seems like if this is your hobby, if this is something you enjoy doing, that even if you're not a part of, like if I left Scene World for whatever reason, if I was like, I don't have time to do this shit anymore, and I left, I'd still keep an eye on the scene. I wouldn't like just walk away from all the stuff that I've been doing for, 40 freaking years now.
Which is a lot of people are doing, actually. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So,
people are heartless.
So, yeah. Got anything else?
Okay. Yeah. Again, the Space Quest historian. He is really pushing out a lot of stuff lately. And here's the thing. He has a secret King's Quest stream VOD playlist of unlisted streams where he plays through all King's Quest games.
Oh. Okay.
Now it's no longer a secret because I will link it in the podcast description.
Sweet.
Yes. And yeah. And one retro scene guy from Germany, Jürgen Kling, he runs the company, the animation company, White Death Animation Films, and he has actually running a Kickstarter campaign now for a 15 minutes short animated movie called Crappy Christmas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Juletide suicide.
All right.
And that's my news.
Okay. Well, I got nothing.
Okay.
So that's all the news.
Good. now let's head over to the Netherlands and speak to Eugene.
Yep, and I'm gonna lay down over there and slowly
Enjoy
wither away.
your cough.
Yes. Phew.
Alrighty.
Oh,
Yeah.
good
Well,
lord.
today we actually have another guest, and today it's Eugene Sandulenko from ScummVM, one of the project leaders. Welcome to the show.
Yes, hello everyone. Nice to meet you.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yes, so actually it started a bit like normally I was using ScummVM as a user, but recently we prepared for an interview for Broken Sword 2.5, and I thought like, well, let's write in the forum there and report some bugs. And to my surprise, you have been really on the call on this one. I mean, one day you virtually fixed almost all the bugs I reported in the game, and it was like, wow, they are really onto things, you know?
Yes, and the problem with ScummVM is that we support way too many games, so users do not always test those. So we truly appreciate when people come and report, because also sometimes I'm going like working around the internet, and on random forums I find complaints which could be really easy to fix, but we just don't know. So thank you very much for actually reaching out and help us. We didn't know those things were sitting there for 15 years unfixed. Now they're fixed.
Awesome. Yeah, well, I mean, perhaps let's start a bit with your beginning personally. I mean, how did you become a co-project leader? I mean, I saw in the archives of the homepage that you started being a co-project leader in 2016, so 8 years ago, actually. And in the announcement, they actually wrote that you did a lot of help to the project towards fixing bugs in the engines. But I guess there must be a story way before. Like what got you into computers and stuff?
Actually, I co-lead the project since 2007. So this is like when it started. 16, no, this is I already was like in 16, in the year 16 I was like before that for several years I was a sole the project lead, and in 16 I was able to find the help of other folks, and this is like why I became like co-lead. But how I did go there, I joined the project in 2003, and I get pretty involved into the project. And then at that moment, we had two co-leads. We had Max Horn, aka Fingolfin, and Ender, aka James Brown. But unfortunately, James was already by that time quite busy with the real life. Then he was busy with Quake, Source Sports, and everything. And this is like why I stepped in and started gradually increase my involvement, adding additional engines like if I remember correctly, it was Goblin's engine, Inherit the Earth engine, which is called Saga. And then like after working pretty closely with Max Horn, Fingolfin, we became again duo, and James officially stepped down because we were waiting like 5 years until he steps down. But then later, I don't even remember when exactly, I was not checking, maybe 2011, 12, Max left the project. He completed his study, and I was alone. Like I left alone as a project lead for a while. And it is pretty big task because the active core is about 150 developers. And typically in a year, like 300 to 500 people are contributing. So it's a task, pretty big task. So I was looking for somebody who would help me, and then Lothar, root father, stepped in, and then stepped up, and then we finally had a back merger of our sister project Residual VM, and two leads of the project, Somayan and Aquadran. Naturally, I was inviting them to be co-leads. So now we are 4. So this is how it is, how currently the project is being governed, I would say.
Awesome. I mean, for 22 years now, it's amazing to be involved in a project for so long. And I actually found out when I was researching for this interview that you also have a blog that you, well, rarely but sometimes update, and you actually have an interesting blog post there where you wrote about the early taps into supporting LucasArts adventure games and how you were unsure if they were actually fine with ScummVM reverse engineering their newer versions of ScummVM for the project. So, but I guess in the end it worked out fine, because nowadays even many commercial players use ScummVM in their GOG and Steam releases as their primary driver of well, offering the game.
They're not just using. We have successful collaborations. For instance, one of the first of those collaborations were the Broken Sword games, when we were working very closely with Revolution Software, and Broken Sword 1 and 2 became actually de facto standard, and later were even the later re-releases were using ScummVM for portability reasons. Then we had a really nice kind of truly commercial collaboration with the Tony engine, Tony Ruff, I believe this is the game name. So the French company who acquired the rights and had the source code, they approached us, they handed us officially the source code and asked us to develop it over the tree, because once we told them that the development on the engine is complete, they made a press release and put it into the market right away without us first coming to with the engine, but it was just synchronized. Then another great collaboration with the Cyan, though we really love working with those guys. We were re-implementing Riven and Myst 25th anniversary edition. What we were doing there pretty cool is that Riven particularly was released on 6 different languages. And if you remember, each game was consisting of five CDs. So putting all 6 wouldn't fit on DVD. So what we did, since it was official release by the actual owners, we performed like clever combination of the resources, removing all of duplicates. And instead of, I think we went from like 11 or 12 gigabytes worth of data to less than 2, which was unique, and which was recompressed and now is part of the like 25th anniversary edition. And then really recent collaboration was in regards of the Spacebar game. So guys from the there is this Zoom platform, not Zoom the which we use for like similar to Skype, but there is a zoom-platform.com. It's a website similar to GOG.com, Good Old Games, where they acquire and redistribute the games. And also the same game, Spacebar, is in Steam based on ScummVM. Because before that, they were able to release only on the original engine, which was really tied to Windows 98, was not functioning very well on modern Windows. And this is where we came to the salvage. So to answer your question once again, that yes, we do have collaborations. However, speaking of the LucasArts folks, we had a lot of problems, especially at the beginning of the project with them. We survived 2 cease and desist letters. Then it was a bit reversed. I was writing it in my blog, but it was not related to LucasArts, but to Humongous Entertainment Games, when they released the Freddy Fish games, Pajama Sam, on Nintendo Wii, but they were violating GPL license, and that was pretty big, and we solved it, thankfully, pretty nicely. But then we didn't hear from LucasArts for a while. And then they were acquired by Disney, Nobody ever contacted us, but the Steam releases of the LucasArts games use ScummVM. So we kind of indirectly know that they are fine with our existence and maybe even happy. There is one particular thing, by the way, maybe somebody will watch this interview, which we are very, very annoyed. We tried to contact the people, but we are not here. They release Maniac Mansion on Steam, which is a badly cracked version. Like ask, we will provide you original vanilla files, and then make it, because it makes thing like dead ends in some places, because crack in one place in the scripting was affecting another place. And Eric Torbjorn, our long-term and Scum expert, is very, very unhappy about this. He was trying to contact them for years now. Hey, please release the Predator version, update it. So if that happens, that would be really nice for preservation of the original game, because what is being sold on Steam is not original, is a patched, cracked version to remove the copy protection, which was manual based at that time.
We've seen that a couple of times, because when Nintendo released their the mini thing, their little game, a bunch of those games were just cracks that they grabbed offline. It's amazing that they would use that sort of thing.
Yeah, this is kind of sad part of the industry, and since we are working with those people, we faced it a number of times. The thing is that game studios very often run by artists and creative person, which are not specifically technically savvy, so their backup strategies are non-existent.
Right.
And how many times we were trying, even after successful reaching out the original IP owners, original people who wrote it, they have no backups, the source code is lost, the game assets are lost. And this is why sometimes re-releases are a bit ugly, because they have to recreate it manually or something like this. Yes, that's a problem. I hope, by the way, one of our kind of goals of the project is to preserve those games, because we making sure that they keep being portable, working on modern systems as best as possible. So hopefully, and meaning that particularly I was mentioning several big collaborations, and there are even more smaller things. Those people who provided us with the source code and we added support of ScummVM made the game revived, maybe to some extent immortalized. And that, let me just do the little shameless plug about the project. We, for instance, have even web, web assembly port. So you can, and we will host it very soon, but now it is hosted on someone else's website. So basically, you saw ScummVM, when you run it, you can have exactly the same thing in the browser. Meaning that for the projects like archive.org, when they have effort of making some games available, they can offer ScummVM, so then you can just play and have these games working for the future generations.
Right.
Yeah, now that you mention it, it's correct. Mostly they are relying on DOSBox for those games. Yeah. And I saw some abandonware websites even have packages of DOS boxes with Windows 3.1 inside that will boot in the background and be heavily modified, so you don't really see it as a user that Windows 3.1 is booting, but in the end it boots Windows 3.1 and then the game itself. And so it's amazing to what length some people go to make old games play. Basically you can get almost anything to work if you just know what you are doing. But one thing that is really important, and I feel that wasn't really mentioned often is also ScummVM allows you to play games that have copy protections that are no longer supported by latest Windows versions, for example. Because you can basically, well, the copy protection isn't actually triggered at all because as I understand, ScummVM is not an emulator, but rather just uses the original game files and the scripting language behind, and well, operating with the assets of the game rather. So
the best comparison understandable for the wide masses is the source port. We are a set of source ports. So we took original source code either directly or via reverse engineering, and we just ported it to the modern. We developed specific framework which provides hardware abstraction. It is called OSystem. And as long as you remove all of the system dependent things like graphics, audio, file access, and use it with OSystem, then the original engine is just working. So this is like why we are being not emulator are able to fix original game bugs, because we have the engine, right? We are working directly with it. Sometimes we even fix or patch scripts on the fly, which would be not so possible in emulators and emulation software, unless you like do binary patches and stuff like this. I wanted to mention something. You mentioned this term abandonware. You know that this is piracy. There is no such thing as
I know,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
But then the problem is, if it's not an archive.org and you can't get the game commercially, and there's no copy on eBay or whatsoever, so what are your options?
It doesn't make it legal anyway. Of course, I mean we as a project are not a police, and whatever people are doing in their like homes, it's up to them. We are not looking to pick. But if you come to the project and you mention, hey, I downloaded this ISO file, how to run it? Since our public channels are being indexed by Google, we, for the sake of the safety of developers, don't refuse to provide any support in this case.
Right.
Because
that would be pretty stupid,
I do not want again cease and desist letters just because we support in piracy. This is like one of the reasons behind certain decisions for the project. For instance, while it would be technically just basic, we don't support running out of zip archives, because we know that the torrents are distributing those games in zip format, and people are lazy. They would like just to play. They don't care about money. But what we saw, and this is our project, it's somehow responsible for this, for the wave on bringing old classics to the market, because now there are ways of playing this. And this is like why there are certain companies, big and small, which are acquiring intellectual property rights, or the original authors are doing this, and they are able to sell it. But if, let's say, it is super widely available for everyone, they will not pay. They will not get money.
True.
Right.
Take a look, for instance, at this marvelous thing which is happening. I forgot his last name. Pierre, the author of the Goblins games.
He did a new entry in the series.
Last year he released Goblin 5. Now he's working on Goblin 6. Or consider Revolution Software. We are kind of partially responsible also for making Broken Sword games available, playable. Then they meet a really good move of freewaring Beneath a Steel Sky, and that ran their studio. And then later they were able to release and sell Broken Sword 2 through 5, which is happening now. And yes, because we are responsible. But if we would, for kind of archival excuses, would say, hey, we would collect and we will make these games available for everyone who wants it just for free, just because we want this, because they deserve it, this would not be possible.
I mean that is actually the problem the Internet Archive is running into with a couple of things recently, especially for vinyl records or books, for example. So
yes. And while I'm personally not happy about this, I also would like to have the things like available, especially when they are out of print, when the company, let's say, like if a game studio like Sierra was producing a game, they had the projection for the sales. Hey, and if we sell it for 200,000, that's enough. Then later it's just a profit, and then no sales. Why not put it on the market? But that's the one thing is being just happy or not happy as a human, and second one is violating some law which can come after you.
True. Yeah. Well, you mentioned different platforms being supported, and one question of AJ's was that he said he is a bit confused about the requirements for the Amiga framework.
Yeah, well, when we were looking at the Broken Sword deal, and that uses utilizes ScummVM, I saw some people posting that it was running on 68K machines, although the ScummVM requirements I see are OS4, which only runs on PowerPC. So that was just didn't know if it actually ran on older Amigas.
Okay. Are you sure that it was regarding Broken Swords? Okay. Yeah. What I know is this. So first of all, we have Amiga OS4 project for a long while port, and we have a very enthusiastic German guy, Keith, who is like pushing and continuing and keeping it up to date always. And he is Amiga lover. He spends now, I know, extra for getting Amiga boxes, but still he runs this, he reviews those. But then there was additional gentleman who came to us, and unfortunately his work was not mergeable. He wanted to port certain games, at least some of them, to the original Amiga. But in order to make it work, he picked Scum-based games. So he picked, I believe, like Maniac Mansion, Monkey Island, and Indiana Jones, the very early ones. And then he ripped off everything else, but it was not enough. It was not performing. So what he had to do in the end, you know that Amiga has a very unique video subsystem with the bit planes. So what he had to do, he had to write utility which takes original game resources, pre-process them, unfolds them into this thing, and then you can run it with the proper frame rate or with proper performance. And it was very, very much of the manual work, because he had to unwind some loops, rewrite some things. I don't believe he had to write anything in assembly, but he certainly had to go on a pretty low level in the C language optimizations, because there is not enough power. Right. And very similarly, there was additional, even cooler project, I consider even cooler. There are enthusiasts which created from the scratch a new 8-bit machine. I forgot what its name, but they actually did the same thing with the Scum engine, then make it running on 8-bit, Amiga is 16 or 32-bit on 8-bit machine.
Huh.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Would that have been could that have been the Commander X16? I'm trying to think of like enthusiast designed machines, and that's one of the ones that's very.
I can try to Google it for a moment, if I remember, but or maybe it's for later. Maybe it's not good for the interview. But you can search 8-bit machine, and they like make it physical. You can buy it, and they have ScummVM port and some other like interesting games. 8-bit machine, ScummVM.
I see there is a Pico 8 version.
No, Pico is a cheating.
Yeah.
No, I don't remember. I cannot find it right now.
No problem.
Well, we'll look
Yeah.
up afterwards, see if we can find it.
Yes.
But yes, you're right. I saw some videos of the guy making ScummVM run on native Amigas, and they were pretty slow.
Oh
I
yeah.
think one recording was full throttle, and the other one I
Mm-hmm.
saw was the first Broken Sword, and it was really really slow, like a slideshow.
Yes. Full throttle. It is Scum version 7, and they became more and more sophisticated scripting, like really really complex inside, and a lot of things like Humongous went even further. For instance, one of their most complex games, which is Moonbase Commander, which is Scum based, same engine as Maniac Mansion was written, but it consists of 3 rooms. Everything is written on the scripts, so you can consider that everything is interpreted on a slower virtual machine of this with the
Right.
pseudocodes, with the P code, and it's very slow. It's quite resource demanding.
Right.
And for full throttle, it makes even more difficult because they and Rebel Assault, they use an insane subsystem. Insane is a subsystem when you have a video, and then on this video you can have overlays. So in full throttle, it is used for the bike fights.
Okay.
This is my first of serious project in ScummVM. I started in 2003 and completed it. And for the PCs of 2003, it was put in a big toil of having this performing well. So working it on original Amiga could be even more than like miracles, I would say.
Wow,
Right.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know a lot about those games. I wonder, how do you decide which games to support and which you don't? I mean, there are also games that when I try to run them in ScummVM, there's a message coming up like this game is not running fully, or it's in beta stages, and for the later releases your save games might stop working. So there is a really a lot of games that are halfway supported but not fully. But um it's sometimes a mixed bag. I remember recently I found out about the German adventure game Eineinhalb Ritter, which actually says on the wiki that it's fully supported, but I still get the message saying that the support is in beta stages, and later versions might make the save game stop working. But when I play the game, it's fully working for me. The only differences I found is ScummVM puts in an autosave function, which the game originally doesn't have. So, so that makes the whole screen go blank for a fraction of a second every 4 minutes. So I wonder how that works
You can
with
turn
the
off,
support.
you can select the autosave period or turn it off completely.
Good to know. But
Yes,
anyway, the
you
core
can
of the
go.
question is
Yes. Yeah.
how do you decide which
Yeah.
games to support and fully and half support or
Yes.
broken?
That's a very good question. So um, first of all, since we are source ports, basically implementing all of the logic of the original game executable, just everything, adding support is not just you go and add. If some game, for instance, based on existing engine, like there are certain engines which actually created as the authoring platforms, like a Adventure Game Studio, AGS, or Wintermute. So to give a great example, coming back to the Goblins 5 and Goblins 6 are IGS-based games. So since the engine is already there, adding that game is easy, just matter of checking that it is working, adding the checksum, and here we go. But normally, if you have a random game, that would mean that somebody has to re-implement the whole logic, like everything, end to end, understand it and write it in a way that it is just flawless, right? In those cases, when we have access to the original source code, this is much easier, but still very often complicated things because for instance, a lot of games in the 90s, they had code written in assembly sometimes, like at least pieces of this. This has to be rewritten, written in C++ or in C. Or those games could do some trickery with the like direct access to memory or whatever, because they are being DOS in multi-user, in a single user system. So those needs to be also rewritten, etc., etc. So meaning that if even if with a source code, it is several months of the project. Like very recently, we added support for QD engine. QD engine, it's an engine for the KD Lab, which is a Russian studio, which is now defunct, and their owner had a mishap. He unfortunately like passed away from the very bad accident, and as a result of his will or whatever, how it's happened, all of the games and all of the releases which they ever had, they published the source code of those. And this is like why we took the original source code, which is about 40,000 lines of code. And even with the original source code, and it was written pretty decently, the support took us over 5 months of work. So this is when we have source code. In case we don't have a source code, you have just executable, and you start poking around. You start loading into like this assembler and starting to figure out what is this. And it is a soup of instructions. There are no names, no variable names, just the numbers, addresses, etc., etc. So you start the process of like really, really painful process of release engineering, which easily can take years, just literally years. One of the bigger projects which we have is Blade Runner. I wanted to have this support so much, but when I was taking a look at it every time, I was saying, oh, no, because the game itself has an executable, which is pretty big, like around 500 kilobytes. But then for every character and for every room, it has a separate DLL. So it had 98 DLLs. Each one of them has to be reverse engineered. So we started several times, stopped, several times started, stopped. And then Peter Kohut finally arrived to our project, which like released, reversed big part of it. And then we made the last push. But nevertheless, it take us 8.5 years to reverse engineer this game. 8.5 years. And wow. This is like, we are talking of people like me. I was part of the project. By that time, I had like 20 years of reverse engineering experience. So it's not it is just huge work, even if you have experience, if you know how to do it. Because come on, the final engine is about like 120,000 lines of code. Just printing it, it's enormous. So now back to your question. In order for a certain game to be to be added to ScummVM, either we have the access to original source code and it is in a pretty decent form, or we have some crazy person with tons of time who is ready, who has so much love or passion and nostalgia for this game. So they are ready and skills for dedicating from half a year to like a couple of years on every night, head down, writing code, putting, trying, etc., etc. So this is like why, especially for those games which are being added through reverse engineering, we sometimes start in adding, but then people give up. One of the great examples like this is the Last Express game. I still keep it in 3, but it has been in 3 for what, 17 years, 18. So soon it will be like a full-grown adult sitting in our
Okay,
it can drink soon. But it is like 95% complete. All the logic is implemented, and only like what is need to be done is the like debugging. But the game itself is super complex, because what it does internally, it runs clock, and then certain things are being triggered just by the clock, and it goes in parallel. So it has all of those compartments inside, like it's Last Express, it's a murder story.
Yeah, I know it.
There
One
are
of my favorite
compartments.
game, actually. Yeah.
Yes. And in every compartments, there are certain actions happening. And inside of the engine, this is like timeline implemented with, if now it is, I don't know, midnight, and then this happened and this didn't happen, then do this way. So it is very difficult to just debug. And this is like why the game is sitting in this state. We wish that there will be some dedicated person who loves the game, who knows the game, and this person would just sit and try to complete it, and then we announce it. Also, we know that the original source code was preserved, and it is sitting in some museum in United States. I think in New York State. I don't remember. Also, it's possible to Google. And we were already considering trying to find somebody who will go physically there and make a copy, but we just cannot find this person who would be helping us. Or maybe they will not be able to make a copy as is, but at least we would then ask them to take a look at the specific places which are problematic and help us to solve those bugs and make the game supported. So these are the reasons. So you would need to find somebody who will dedicate like enormous amounts of time on completely understanding all the inner workings of the game, re-implementing it for ScummVM, and do it. 2 days ago, we had a gentleman who popped up on our Discord server, and he thought, hey, I'm an author of this Amiga game. It was released back then, but I passionate about it, and I'm original developer. I wrote certain things in C, so it is now all in C. I would like to bring it to ScummVM. So this is one of the such examples.
But now the question is, in case of the Last Express, it has been re-released and modified to work on modern system and yes, republished by .emu. And yes, I guess it's not possible to just ask the current publisher to help.
We with .emu, we were working on Tony release. Actually, we are in a good relationship with them, but the re-release is not based on the source code. It is just tweaking of the original executable, making it work. So unfortunately, they, with their new re-release, they don't have access to that source code.
If so they would, found other ways to make it
work.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it's like as you were mentioning, could be those box in disguise.
I mean, I don't have the original release. I only have the Steam release, which is the gold edition, if I'm not mistaken. So they did reprogram or put in some other interface, and so they got it working somehow. But I understand your problem is you need the source code, or at least a reverse engineered version of it,
which lives at the Strong National Museum of Play, I believe, in Rochester, New York.
Okay, right.
Which
this is
I would have said, I live pretty close to New York. I was thinking like I could go up there, but Rochester is like a weekend trip. That's a ride. That's way up there.
But
anyone
hey,
lives near Rochester,
be the hero. You could be the hero of
next
ScummVM.
time I go to Rochester, if no one's gotten up there, next time I go up there, I'll swing by.
Awesome. Yeah. So
it reminds me like about like 15 years ago, we were in the Stanford University looking through the Steve Meretsky's archives, because he was very meticulous archivist. And this is, by the way, how the spacebar code was finally located. And this is like, wow, now it is in ScummVM and on the market.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
It's quite interesting because you mentioned Lucasfilm or LucasArts games.
You went through like a multi-year process with them, right? To show them that you weren't like using their code.
They were sending us 2 times cease and desist with difference between the tries, maybe like 5 years. As we were speculating, apparently when maybe the legal team was renewed and somebody, this is an old case, not closed. Let us slap them again. And I barely touched the first one, which was in 2003 when I just joined the project. It was almost complete of it. And then the second one, I think 2007, maybe 2000, and I don't remember exactly, when they said us scary thing. They thought exactly that we are redistributing their intellectual property. And we said, no, we don't. And then that's, but then you are using our opcodes. And even in the United States law, it is possible to re-implement the same thing.
Right.
But in Europe, actually, reverse engineering is completely legal. So the DMCA is defunct in Europe, and most of the ScummVM developers are actually in Europe. You can reverse engineer with the goal of increasing interoperability. Exactly our project.
Right.
Right.
But you mentioned earlier that they are using ScummVM also in their GOG and Steam releases, but actually I found out recently that their 1989 release, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, actually uses apparently neither DOSBox nor ScummVM, but some kind of different platform for emulating it on modern Windows systems, because if you look in the community, people are like and I actually experienced that myself because I bought a license of Amazon Germany. They offer it for €4, a Steam license, Steam key, and the graphics and the sound emulation is so bad that it's even worse than what DOSBox would offer for their AdLib and PC speaker emulation. So that really surprised me that they apparently came up with something on their own that is much worse than what is already out there. So it's one of those games where I'm like, okay, I'm not playing it in this state. Let's add it to ScummVM and play it the proper way.
Yes.
There
is recently appeared a really interesting way of running. It started with LucasArts game. Did you heard about Dream? DREAMM.
Yes,
by
I heard about it.
Aaron Giles. So what he's implemented.
It's a one person project, right? It's only
Aaron Giles. Aaron Giles is the guy who is behind the original ports to Windows 95 of LucasArts games. Then he was very big in MAME, multi-arcade machine emulator. So he's all about. He is very technically savvy person. And particularly for this one, since he was porting this to Windows, he decided to write it in a it's like basically as a DOS box, but for specific sets of the games. So what he is doing, he is writing the original executable, but when there are calls to DOS, he intercepts those and executes his own code. And later he added Windows for the Windows games to cover everything. And then it was easier for him now. It is easier and easier to add new games. So I see that he's kind of started to throw in some random things he likes, or maybe some requests. So for making these games working better and better. We took a couple of nice ideas from him in order particularly for how to run it automatically. And he inspired us, Aaron, to do the things which was kind of nagging us for a long while. since, as I mentioned to you, we had to reverse engineer things, and we started with reverse engineering Scum-based games. We were lazy to reverse engineer the original UI, like save dialogues. We were using our ScummVM ones always. But recently, and after looking at Aaron and his Dream emulator, we were inspired to just re-implement everything and went even further in the release, which is going to be released just next week on 22nd of December 2.9.0. We are adding, even emulating or re-implementing classic Mac dialogues, which is used for the Mac indie, Mac Indiana Jones, Macintosh Monkey Island, and Macintosh Loom, with those like black and white things, with the menus, with everything, like pixel perfect. The guys were like chasing pixel perfect, running it in the emulators and seeing in a real hardware in order to compare it. That's fun.
That is.
Interestingly,
I'm looking forward to that, because I actually, most of my
you are the Mac guy.
Yeah, most of my the games that I have in ScummVM are the Mac versions of Monkey Island, all those games. And when I stopped using a 68K Mac, I couldn't use them anymore. So they're in ScummVM. Yeah.
Just don't cry too much when you see those interfaces which you didn't see for 25 years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's interesting that you mention it, because if I'm not mistaken, on his project page, he actually writes that he specifically doesn't want to work with other people, but as a sole developer, he doesn't want anybody participating in it, because he wants to do it his way. So if I'm not mistaken, that also means it's not open source. It's closed source. Yeah, then it's actually the same project. I had a look a few weeks ago. Yeah. So doesn't that kind of, I don't know, defeat the purpose of having so much projects doing the same thing, running coherent next to each other? Wouldn't it be better to have, I don't know, combined forces? I mean, if I'm not mistaken, in the history of ScummVM, there has been actually a case. I remember I was reading about the history that originally there was also a separated project for 3D game. For 3D
Residual
games.
VM. I was mentioning it. We had a merger in 2008.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry,
What
2016.
What was it again called?
Residual VM.
Yeah.
It's called residual because it is residual of ScummVM, of Scum-based games, which are not fit into the project. We are Scum project, and that is residual, the leftovers.
Right. There are games that it handles that don't use the Scum engine at this point, correct?
The project of ScummVM started in 2001 in October.
Right. Mm-hmm.
In 2001, in November or December, we had first non-Scum engine added to this. Mm-hmm. So people think, and sometimes there is a misconception for the whole life of the project that it is only about Scum games. No. Right away, Simon game, now we renaming it into Agos, for the Simon the Sorcerer was added. And then we added more and more games. Then we had the original source code for Beneath a Still Sky, for the Flight of Amazon Queen. Then I was joining the project at that time, and then we added the Goblins game engine. Then we have Inherit the Earth, Saga engine for Inherit the Earth. And then it just snowballed. Now we have, if I remember correctly, 108 different age engines. And we now like 4.6 million lines of code. It's a huge project. Yeah, it's one of the biggest projects in open source. But coming back to your question about this. So first of all, Dream and ScummVM are completely different approaches to the same thing. Dream is running the original executable and makes it just easier versus running it in a DOS box when you need to learn the DOS commands, like set up your sound card, whatever. It does it automatically picks up because it knows about these specific games. So consider it as the fine-tuned DOS environment specifically for these games. And so this is like incompatible by the concept. But coming back to your question, do you find it bad that we have 86box, VMware, QEMU? Why don't they merge? This is kind of beauty of the open source. And you know that every software developer likes to reinvent their own bicycle anyway. There are sometimes egos, there are sometimes experiences when you're learning about this. Another great example for you. Why do we have not hundreds, but thousands of different Linux distributions?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. How do you decide, like, if you've got a game that you're talking about bringing in that maybe doesn't necessarily share any of the scripting with, like a couple of years back, the absolute classic "Plumbers Don't Wear Ties" was added to it.
It was April Fool's joke, which we then on April 2nd told, no, it's not a joke.
And I don't think that uses any of the that. You know, to my knowledge, that was probably a one-off. What was the like? What is the decision process for saying, like, okay, we have a game here that doesn't share an engine with any other game. Let's bring that in and retro engineer that to work with the
As
VM.
I mentioned to you, we need somebody interested. That's it. So there should be a developer who wants to work on it and who joins the project. That's it. Very often, people join already with half-baked engine. Sometimes they start with something else, like, or even write on SDL, and then they come to us and say, hey, I would like to port to ScummVM. Sometimes they come, like recently Guy appeared, I would like to add support for this game. Can you explain me the process? We explain the process. Well, he disappeared, but this is very often happens. Okay. We have actually dozens, if engines outside of the tree. You can find those on Wiki. We try to catalog them, which are a different stage of completeness outside of the tree, not yet ready to be merged back. So this is why we tried. Speaking of the Plumbers game, what was interesting and why we decided to do it, because somebody looked at it, this is, I think it was even got a trophy of the most disgusting and stupid game in some year, because it's so like outrageously. It's just basically a slideshow, and
even though it says it's FMV, it's just a slideshow voiceover.
Exactly. And but what was interesting, when we first implemented it, and we implemented support only for the Windows version, it had the smallest, the tiniest engine, 500 lines.
Wow.
That was the whole engine, end to end. Now it is like, I think 3 times more, 1,500, I believe, because we added support for 3DO version. Because 3DO has a different picture format, so we had to add. But this is very, very primitive and simple thing.
Right.
Yeah, this is what we do. So like when there is some interest, or sometimes people come to us and we still have, we also watch in the world, sometimes developers release their source codes in the wild and they're just sitting. Like I was given hints to Paul, Dream Master, who is like one of the ScummVM old-timers, and he's doing very complex things and very big ones. And he was working now at the M4 engine, which is used for Orion Burger, and Riddle of Master Lu. And those games has really, really badly hard-coded logic, and it's so boring to reverse engineer. And he was asking, hey, Eugene, do you have anything like I would like to switch the gears over the Christmas? And I was directing him to the old game, which was released, the source code. It's called God of Thunder, very small RPG. And last Friday, we started to have this little, how to say, tradition in the project. We have it Friday screenshot. So random developers working on different things. On Friday, they put a screenshot of their progress. And last Friday, Paul already published the screenshot of the first screens in game for this little engine.
Awesome.
Let me probably explain you a little bit. There are several kinds of games or game engines which are used for point and click adventures.
Right.
There are single game engines which were used only for one game. Very often, this also contains all of the logic embedded in the executable. So you have to reverse engineer everything. Then there are multi-game engines like Scum, but very often it is the engine itself was developed through the year. And the typical approach for those years was just to make a source copy and start hacking it. So what we do, we assemble it together, which was never there was never a single version running for everything. Like for the Scum games, there are over 20 different versions of it. Now we embed everything into one executable, but you would need executable for every game or for every release of the game. And finally, there are engines which were created for authoring. So were not created around the game, but in order to create games. As I mentioned, Adventure Game Studio, like you open and you start writing scripts, like Wintermute, Sludge, or like another open source engine for creating games. And like recently what we are working on, Director, Micromedia Director, which is also authoring tool, which was used for many different games.
Yeah.
So those are from the perspective on the internals, how it works. And then you have scripted engines and you have hard-coded engines. If the engine scripted, that means that the game logic would be in the scripts and they will sit into the game data. And hard-coded is when everything is written just in C, Pascal, or even worse, assembly. So it could be it is then painful to reverse.
Right.
But every game you support has to be an adventure game of some sort.
Oh, I don't.
No.
No?
Adventures and we relatively recently, like maybe 8 years ago, recently, but for 22 years project, we started also accept RPGs. Just because we ran out of the low-hanging fruits for adventures. And then for adventures, we started with the only point and click, strictly point and click. But at this moment, we already embraced text-based adventures, interactive fiction. We merged with residual VM, so 3D adventures, like one of the almost finished engines in 3, Penumbra Overture, which is survival game. And we recently also started to add FMVs. So like true FMVs, not like plumbers. And so like our kind of, some people are not so happy about it, stay focused, but that's the thing. The engines or the games which were left unsupported, either super niche or hard-coded, which are very, very difficult to reverse. So like we would like to progress on something. So this is like why we kind of losing the focus to some extent. But from the other hand, the number of developers, I'm happy to tell that number of developers in the project only grows with the years. Of course, we had folks which left, but the overall size of the team is bigger and bigger. And more people are like working on whatever they like to work on.
But that also
got,
could be a problem.
Hang on, you even got you've got Hoyle's book of games. You've got card games and stuff in there as well, aside from just adventure and RPG.
But this is different story. No, it's not a different story. Hoyle's game are based on Sierra Creative Interpreter.
Okay.
It's exactly the same engine which runs Space Quest, Police Quest, Larry. It is just a matter of them implementing on this engine. Excuse me, we have Tetris. Did you know that we have Tetris?
Do you?
I didn't.
No,
There is AGI. We have actually two. There is AGI, Adventure Game Interpreter, the early Sierra games.
Right.
And it was reverse engineered a long time ago. And there is used to be a very big community of fan-made games. There are, I think, over 200 are supported by ScummVM. And one of them is called AGI Tetris. So you can just play Tetris. Why it is AGI? Because they stole the backdrops from different games like King's Quest, and just shamelessly using. And then another game authoring engine, Wintermute, they also have Tetris implementation in them. So it's not about that. Like when they, and this is, by the way, how RPGs entered the project. Because Legend of Kyrandia engine, it uses also on the same engine, Lens of Lore is built, which is RPG. Right. And this is like why it was there. Then we later added Eye of Beholder 1, Eye of Beholder, the pure RPGs. It's in the same Legend of Kyrandia engine. And so the door were open. We said, okay, we have already supporting these like 5 different RPGs. Let's add more. And this is like why we added Might and Magic, and we added Ultima engines.
Wow, yeah, that's a lot of stuff. What were you going to say, Jörg?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, just by adding so much stuff and having so many developers, I mean, you mentioned it as a positive thing that you have a growing number of developers, but isn't that also negative in a way that you have to coordinate so many people at once and to make sure that the quality of the product, in your case ScummVM, still upholds to your quality standards?
So first of all, there are very limited amount of people who are working on core, which is the framework. And for instance, all the changes have to go through my approval, through my review, and we have, and there are several other people which are helping with this. But then when we have many developers, but they are compartmentalized, so they working inside of their engine.
Right.
So they are not touching any other code. So as I mentioned, 108 different projects inside of ScummVM. Right now, by the way, as I speak, I am slowly working on a subsystem, which like we grew dramatically, and the executable is like half of a gigabyte on Windows because it includes everything. And we wanted to work on a smaller platform. So I finally started implemented it when it is close to completion. The way of turning off, removing from the ScummVM project unused pieces of code which are referenced there. So then if, let's say, you want to release a game commercially, or you want to put your game on a smaller device which doesn't support like maybe 30 of 100 engines because they're too big resolution or maybe too heavy, then you turn them off. And if they using some specific like libraries or algorithm, for instance, video codecs, then they will be not even compiled in, so your executable will be smaller. So like when people are working, we have people are specialized, for instance, on specific port, and they working only on the backend port, like for Amiga. So Amiga guy touches only his subdirectory within the project where his port specific, platform specific files and logics is code is leaving. And then there is another gentleman who is working these days on Darkseid engine. He wants to release it finally. So he's working only on this engine. He's not touching other engines. Right. And this is like why, unfortunately, when some people leave in the project in years, it happens. Some of the engines, they kind of get installed. We cannot even do back fixing because they left, and their engine, they had knowledge. We cannot, it's too complex.
So what's the plan to resolve that? Assigning new people, saying like learn how the other stuff works,
We are
or just
all
keeping it as is?
Yes, we are all meritocracy. I cannot. The only place or only time when I kind of put in a little pressure on developers is at the time of release. Then we do a bug bash. So we select which bugs needs to be fixed before release, which are release blockers, and only that. Before that, we are working. If you talk about the approach of the software development, maybe heard it's called train model. So train goes by specific schedule, and if you complete the feature, then it goes into release. If you didn't complete it, it goes into next one. So what is happening when the engine is approaching maturity, and then we announce so-called public testing. So then we remove that scary warning for you that, hey, it's beta version. Please test. And then after we have positive feedback from the people that they play through the game and it is working properly, then we announce it as compatible. And that means that we start accepting the bug reports about it from the external community. Before that, we have maybe like out of 108, maybe around 20 engines are still in heavy development in 3. Like Last Express is one of those, which are not yet ready for the public, but you can run ScummVM 90 and maybe you can even complete the game end to end. Just we are not happy because there may be some bugs, some like visual glitches, or some features maybe just skipping, not existing in the engine.
Right.
So that means once I complete my German point-and-click adventure that is in beta state, I should report back if I finished the game without bugs or something.
Yes, absolutely. That would be a really great thing. We unfortunately had several games which have so low number of testers that we still market them as incompatibility or untested. People are lazy of reporting back. I don't know what is happening. They expect everything working and for free because the mobile devices spoil them,
I mean, the main reason actually why I'm using ScummVM is because the original game requires you to have the CD-ROM in the drive all the time because of copy protection, and that really annoys me. So I can tuck the DVD away and just play it in ScummVM without having to insert it all the time. And as we know, as I mentioned at the beginning of the interview, a lot of copy protections stopped working since Windows 8 and up. So for example, secure ROM and all those things, they're not really working anymore. So even if you would want to play it legally, the only option is to get ScummVM in those cases.
Correct.
So.
And this is why ScummVM is used so much on Steam and good old games in order to run those. Also, in some cases, there was not possible from looking at the game scripts if the game protection was existing or not, because it was existing only in executable. So since we are not using the original executable with secure ROM, we have no idea that the original executable was encrypted as it was. We are working only with the data. So this is why you can get it unprotected for free.
Right.
Without using some weird no CD patch or whatever. That's a plus. Yeah. Because it's always feeling a bit weird if one has to do that. Despite I paid for the game, I have a perfectly legal copy, but it still feels a bit weird to have to do that sometimes. Yeah. It's a bit like, damn,
Yes, the modern state is like makes me cry, especially for those games which have online component. They shut down the server and goodbye.
Yeah, that actually happened to me with Need for Speed Shift 1. I bought a legal serial key from Origin. Now they call it the EA app, and but the game itself still has a copy protection and connects to a registration server for the license key that you just bought online 5 minutes ago from the platform. But since it cannot reach the server, it cannot validate that your license key is actually valid, so it refuses to play the game. So you actually have to go into Windows directory, Windows registry, and put in some code manually and stuff. And I'm like, oh my god, you know. And
hang on one sec. I gotta open a door, but carry on.
No problem. Yeah. So I just wonder. For once, why is EA still selling those keys, knowing that they can't be activated? And for second, why not? I don't know, implementing a fix. It's just weird for me sometimes.
It is not so weird for me, because imagine how it does. So like people who are managing the web shop are one people, and then there is a request. Hey, could you please release this? And they say, we need to ask legal. Legal, without not being technical, say no. And they say, no, we cannot do it. And this is how you end up with all of this nonsense, indeed. And this is like why it is sometimes so sad to see, like there are mixed understanding for certain releases, especially by certain companies, which are even kind of proud about it. But what we see is that it looks to me, and not just to me, often as a way of getting a quick buck, rather expressing the love for the game. So this is like why they could use cheap AI for upscaling and announcing as a release, like remaster, or releasing like broken versions, or like unreadable discs, just because they don't care. They care about getting money. Hey, we paid for this license, let us just push it to the market as soon as possible. And this is how you end up with all of the things. And this is like why like projects like us, we kind of have a pretty high standards for the things. So when we announce something that's supported, it should be pretty nice and pretty well. So this is like why I cared much about that library Lightning in Broken Sword 2.5. Yeah. While for the commercial release, would say, but you can still complete the game. So like, swallow it.
Yeah, I was really surprised about that one. For once it was even you who wrote, like, it would be nice to have the game fully fixed for the next release of ScummVM. And I was like, wow, now I really put the pressure on the project, because I was writing in the forum that in a few days we are going to interview Marius Gosh, who was one of the project leaders of the game. And it was like, oh my god, I didn't want to cause so much trouble to ScummVM, but it's nice.
No.
Did you actually fix or find out about the defacing bug in the save screen?
No, not yet. I didn't manage it for the release. Why so? Because I stopped it halfway. Why so? When we were working on this engine originally, yes, I remember 12 years ago, we didn't see how the debugging. So we saw that there was a certain pieces of engine which were for the debug purposes, but we didn't find it reference from anywhere. And now I took a look and I found it, and I enabled debugger, and it immediately crashed for me because those pieces were removed. And I re-added those, but still it is not working. So there is some problem with priority, because the original engine was OpenGL based. So what does it do? It always renders everything just in Z order. And apparently in that particular room, that order is too high. So it is not defaced. But if you take a look more closely, when you move the mouse, it tries to restore background, and it restores background from a different picture. So this is like when you can paint with your mouse. So that's the reason. And this is how so far as I reached out, because it happens only in those rooms. In other rooms, it doesn't happen with the death screen. So not yet, sorry. In 2.9.0, ScummVM, this bug is still present, but it is not critical. But the bug which you find out with the Lightning was quite embarrassing, because I found out that we never implemented Lightning so properly, and it was just not noticeable in other parts. We were always like how it is. It light map like a picture with all of different darker things, and when you move your character, it picks the color of that pixel and then adds a tint to it, to the character. But we were taking this was not working at all. We were always getting the tint from the coordinate 0, 0. And in library, it appeared to be dark. Everywhere it was white, so we didn't even notice that lighting is not working. But there, for some reason, there is like maybe smudge of the mouse, because it's not visible. It was dark, and this is like why lighting, it was super dark everywhere. We didn't notice for 15 years. Nobody reported. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he told me during the interview, I was the guy. I was very thorough in my research. He was like, wow, you really played through the game and reported all the bugs and so on. Wow, yeah. I mean, I take big pride in researching before we interview people and giving it some effort,
Or another thing which you reported, that in airport the background noise stops. And you know why nobody noticed? Because I don't know what you were doing there, but people normally go pretty fast through the section. And the background music is about 3 minutes long, and then it's supposed to loop. And loop was not working, but nobody reported it because maybe nobody was playing so long for this specific game.
Yeah. The reason why I reported is because for the Mario Scotch interview, I was looking at live streams, and in those live streams where people were doing long plays, they are talking to the chat and so on, so it delays everything a bit. And they were never using the ScummVM version, but only using the original version from the homepage. So I knew, okay, there's a difference between ScummVM and the version from the homepage, because their game was totally different than my experience with ScummVM, because my take was like, I'm not going through the hassle of trying to get it run in Windows 11. I'm just using the easy way. And then this way I found out about all those bugs, because I was comparing my gameplay with others from the live streams that they put up on YouTube. But the thing is, I noticed later that's not even only happening in the airport, but also in the underground and other places.
That's everywhere. It's a general bug, yeah.
It's a general bug even, okay.
Yes, no looping music were looping ever.
Wow.
Nobody noticed.
Oh, dang.
By the way, speaking of that, just wanted to mention that we also support very much the community of speedrunners. And they massively using ScummVM, and I was adding relatively recently additional features specifically for them, like for instance how to lock the random number generator, so you can put initial seed in your configuration file, and then you have 100% replayability and all that's different things. So if anyone has any troubles for the speedrunning, we will gladly fix those, or keep not unfixed if it is being exploited for the run.
Interesting that you mentioned it, because I was actually looking. I was watching some videos today and the days before about the Space Quest historian, and he mentioned that you fixed some Space Quest 4 CD version bugs about the timing of the era games that made the games running timing wise too fast for some events, so you couldn't complete the game in modern computers. So that's though you are mentioned always in context with the era games and those timing events and the speedrun community. they always mention like, yeah, ScummVM fixed this thing, you know. So it's quite interesting. Yeah.
Sierra games were very problematic. What they were doing, they were releasing hundreds of games, and their quality control was much worse than of the LucasArts, because they were rivals at that moment. But what they were doing the patches and sending you floppies to the people. So as a result, there are sometimes dozens of different versions of the same game, but slightly different with all different bug fixes. So what we did, we implemented a whole like subsystem of patching the original scripts, and we wrote a sophisticated debugger and memory leak checker also, and the address sanitizer right inside for this Sierra Creative Interpretive scripts. And as a result, we had like almost 1,000 of different game patches. And we had a dedicated person, Slaus Box, who has a really what is his last name is Benhoff, forgot his first name, and he is so passionate about this, and he collects all of those original Sierra bugs and fixes them, goes into like rabbit hole of understanding why, how, and making it absolutely working. Even like if you take any version of Sierra game, we implement all of those fixes which were in the later releases.
So when I have a version of the earlier versions, let's say King's Quest, for example, they even I read I actually learned that in between the different version releases, they even changed some graphics. Though in the later versions, they only need one disk less than before. So that means I always get the experience of the game as intended by the version I own as a copy, or not? Or will ScummVM patch in the bugs regardless?
Okay, you will. So we're talking about slightly different things. I'm talking about script bugs. So if there are script bugs and later fixed, we incorporate those.
Okay.
But what you're talking about, I know what you're talking about. What they did, the Sierra pictures, they are not bitmaps, they are vector graphics. So what they were doing, their artists were just drawing, and then this line here, line here, line here. So as a result, what they were doing for some after a certain point, they simplified those pictures, so they take less space. Of course, we are not replacing those pictures, but if there is like some game breaking bugs, and there were plenty in Sierra, not dead ends intended, but game breaking bugs, we fixed those.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, it's amazing how much time you can spend discussing those things. I mean, we are talking about game engines for over an hour now. It's such an amazing topic. Yeah. Wow. But I always wondered, how do you go about the different platforms of the games? I mean, you have basically all versions of all platforms of all games. Is that kind of your goal? I mean, for example, Zack McCracken was also released on Japanese PCs and different platforms, and I don't know, how do you go about that? Is it when you add support for a game that you are going after any platform the game was ever released on?
So first of all, for the documentation purposes, we indeed try to chase every possible version, just to have it registered in our detection system. But then it depends if there are very often there are very little or no difference in data formats. So then the difference would be just into the file content, which is we check by the checksum in order to ensure that it is. but also very often it is related to the specific of a platform like sound chip. If it is Commodore 64, then the music will be for the seed chip, and we have seed chip emulator. So when if it is a known format that it's a no-brainer of adding this, or like Omega version, we have support for several different mod formats. And if it is so, if the music in the slightly different format, and we have already like processor for that format, then it is piece of cake of adding this. But sometimes the differences are much deeper, and then it depends if we have skills and desire to go into rabbit hole and implement it. To give a great example, Flight on the Amazon Queen is a game. There is an Amiga release, but we never added Amiga release because it is less superior than those versions, so it will not add anything new. The game is freeware. Here it is, go and play it. And but it will require significant reworking of the graphics because they have a different thing inside of it, different format, different compression, and it is written in the MS68 assembly. So fewer and fewer people do speak it. So this is like why, and this is how. Sometimes it is possible to add additional platform. Sometimes it is more difficult, and we do have expertise and we do add it. But sometimes we just register it that, okay, it exists. Maybe someday somebody comes. Like we have this gentleman who comes and goes through the years, like comes out of blue, but he is so passionate about sound. So he comes and he kind of rewrites some of the sound generation routines, make it better, make it closer to the original. I never know when he comes next time, but when he comes, okay, here it is, back, bunch of code, put it into ScummVM, and it becomes instantly better.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
I'm trying to work on a book, actually.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
Maybe.
Yeah.
You should. You have so much knowledge. Your head must explode. I mean.
And then when it's ready to be released, you can come back on and talk about that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
nothing.
Oh, okay. So where can people go to find out more about ScummVM and what you guys are doing?
ScummVM.org. That's the primarily website. Also wiki.scummvm.org, which is also linked from the website. And if you would like to talk to the developers, we have really vibrant community on Discord. Once again, from ScummVM.org, the link are directly over there. And then you can just talk, ask your question. We have several, maybe 50 different channels on different topics there for different engines, for different peculiarities, even off-topic channel. So, and right now, how many? Let me check briefly. If I see now where it is, okay. So at this very moment, we have 3,500 people on the server registered, and 9 developers are online, me included.
All right.
Wow.
Awesome. We'll put links to everything in the description down below.
I mean, not only that, you're also on any social media people can think of. I mean, you're on Mastodon, you're on X, you're any place.
Yes.
I mean, wow.
On Facebook, and recently we even registered on Blue Sky.
Okay. That's a good one. I like Blue Sky.
You are everywhere, so it's amazing. You are unstoppable, basically, right? it's amazing. Yeah. Well, awesome. Perhaps one question before we stop. Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks for taking the time and sitting with us.
Yes,
amazing. I mean, this totally. I learned such a lot today. I mean, I'm sure HA also learned a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's amazing the nuances and how how finicky everything is. I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of people would say, I'm done. It's too much work. But you guys keep going, and it's amazing. And I also like the attention of detail, as you just said. Now you're going for safe screens and low screens. It's amazing.
Nice talking to you guys. Good questions.
Awesome.
I like it.
Well, we do our best, and I'm looking forward to see a fully bug-free Broken Sport 2.5. And
I will keep you informed when I fix it.
I mean, you got all my save games, so this is all I could supply, basically. Alrighty. Nice. So, have a good night. Awesome.
Okay. Have a good evening, and
Thank you,
you too.
bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.